celebrate. They have done it.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris back with a quick video, opinion video. I don't know if it's a rant or a thought of the day, really. Let's call it a thought of the day and a bit of a head-scratching thought, really. And it's all about the potential problems of Newcastle United's new stadium, a new proposed stadium at Leazes Park. As we all know, the club is growing at a massive exponential rate in terms of success on the pitch. We all know the clamour for tickets. Most of us can't get a ticket. Those of us who had season tickets and bin them can't get back into the ground. You know, most match days are a real nightmare to try and get a hold of a ticket. You've got the ballot. It doesn't really seem to work. Now there's these new supporter group things, which would mean even more people in the ballot, which would be even less chance to win a ticket or get a ticket for the game. So all of these things are causing more and more frustration and just leading to the fact that I think Newcastle United have to have a new stadium because the 52,000-seater stadium at St James's Park is no longer big enough to hold the capacity of the fans of this football club and where it wants to be probably in the next 5 years. So the whole new stadium, will it, won't it? We haven't had it officially confirmed by the club yet, but it's been leaked by enough journalists for me to tell me that it's pretty much looks like it's going to happen. And Leazes Park appears to be the number one spot for where Newcastle are going to build a new ground. It makes loads of sense because they can stay at St James's Park while they're building the new stadium, then just nicely transition over to the new stadium. A little bit like what Spurs did, except for they won't have to play at Wembley because there is no Wembley. In the northeast, and then no Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Manchester United's new stadium will not be the Wembley of the north before you start that nonsense as well. But it's an easiest way for Newcastle to transition from St James's to the new stadium at Leazes Park. However, this was always going to be the case. There's going to be objection to this because you're talking about building a stadium in a green area of Newcastle, of the northeast, and surprise, surprise, there's been a petition that's kicked up quite a lot of votes here about rejecting the plans for a new stadium in Leazes Park. So just talking about this here. So there was a petition here on change.org. I think it's gathered 11,000 signatures following a surge in support that's seen it climb from, I think, around 6,000 to 11,000 in just 24 hours. Now, it's an interesting one, this, because this is a European petition that other people can click on and sign. This could just be a bunch of jobs with yes men. It could also just be other fans from the clubs, even Mackems, to be fair, could be clicking on this. But this is Save Newcastle Wildlife, is the people who are putting this petition through. And what they've said there is obviously Newcastle, the Leazes Park is in Newcastle, is the oldest park in Newcastle, having opened in 1873. And if you were to build a new stadium, it would set a dangerous precedent for parks and green space across the city, many of which are already struggling to make ends meet. So it is expected that the campaigners will submit the petition to Newcastle Council and ask for it to be debated by the local authority in the next full meeting, which is in June. And petitions with more than 2,500 signatures can trigger a full council debate. However, that isn't guaranteed. So pausing that for a second. I'm not sure the council will side with Save Newcastle Wildlife. And also there may be a bit of a compromise here because a lot of the other parks, in around the space in Newcastle do need investment, no doubt. And we don't know what they're going to do with the old ground at St James's. Maybe that can be turned into some kind of a of a green space, a garden space, whatever it may be. But I think a lot of this is probably kicked off, and a lot of them signatures are kicked off because what would have happened in lockdown, and I'm guilty of this as well. So I live down by the coast, and I've lived there since I was 2 years old, right? And you take it for granted. And then when lockdown happened, a lot of us in lockdown were we're walking around in the greenery spaces that were just on our front doorstep, or the beaches that were on our front doorstep. We started to fall in love again with where we live. And I think a lot of people are probably signed up to this. They're probably not football supporters. They go for little walks to clear their head. That's good for your mental health. I'm sure you're not going to deride that. They walk their dog and stuff like that. But they did it in lockdown. They didn't do it before. They did it in lockdown. Maybe now they do it now because they've learned to reappreciate the area that's on their doorstep. And now all of a sudden, this area could be turned into this big new stadium. But the pros and the cons have to be weighed up for this stadium, I think, for the city centre, because you're talking about a lot of new jobs being created. There'll be new business opportunities and ventures and things like that in the lead up to the park as well. And at the minute, let's be honest with you, Leazes Park is probably full of smackheads and fucking rats, probably, in all fairness. That's what it's full of. Yes, it's nice to have the area, but it's not exactly walking in the Garden of Eden, is it? Let's be honest with you. So that needs to be invested in and sorted out as well. And the council probably haven't got a pot to piss in. Not to get too political about that. That's probably where they can't clean it up. So if Newcastle United build a stadium there, they would probably pay to get rid of all the vermin and stuff like that anyway. So you wouldn't see that going through. And then there probably would be some kind of green walkways, in and around the ground for you to get up to. I'm pretty sure about that. No doubt about it. But Newcastle United haven't responded on this yet. and then we'll be waiting to hear what word comes from it. They're probably waiting to see how serious it gets. But a spokesperson for Save Wildlife in Newcastle said, in 1857, 3,000 working people of Newcastle petitioned Newcastle Council for ready access to some open ground for the purpose of health and recreation. In 1873, Leazes Park was opened. For the people of Newcastle, since then, millions of pounds of taxpayers' money has been spent on making Leazes Park a green and pleasant place for the people and the wildlife in Newcastle. They're really laying it on thick here in terms of how important Leazes Park is to the region. In most recent years, Leazes Park has hosted the Green Festival. I don't know how many people went to that, to be fair. I didn't go to myself. The North East's largest free environmental festival, and they've been carried by the Friends of Leazes Park. There are more than 1,000 trees in the park, as well as shrubs and hedgerows, which provide food and shelter for insects and other wildlife, including bats, birds, and hedgehogs, and rats as well. You missed rats out on that one as well, mate. But yeah, they're obviously laying it on thick here in terms of, I won't read it all, but this is your typical kind of environmentalist person. And I've got no issues with them. We need to save the planet. The planet's a beautiful place, and we are ruining it. There's no doubt about that at all, right? But there has to be a compromise, I think. You can't prevent infrastructure and buildings being built and evolution of societies. You can't do that. We'd all be living in mud huts still, throwing spears at wolves, like cavemen. That's the balance here. So there has to be some kind of a dialogue between the council, these environmentalists, and the club as well, to see what kind of compromise they can come to. And I'm sure they will do. The club are very PR conscious. They're very corporately PR conscious, so they won't want to be upsetting activists and things like that. But sometimes with these activists, not these guys, but some of these activists do, stretch to the kind of hysterical and over dramatic ways to get the point across. We've seen it with the Just Stop Oil people. Not they even stopped. Just Stop Oil have stopped. Because they've gone too far and they've lost the support of the public. But this is going to be a very, very volatile situation for these people who are trying to get their point across. And I won't deride them or abuse them. I don't think any of you should do either. As long as they try and get the point across in a calm way, but if they start to disrupt match days and things like that, it will turn a bit ugly, to be fair. I think a lot of the fans are wanting this new stadium, and the city's probably wanting this new stadium as well, the businesses, everybody around it. And, the council, I think, don't have a lot of money to maybe put more into Leazes Park. So it's possibly a win-win for everybody. But it'll be interesting to see what happens off the back of this and how far this petition goes, really. So in terms of what the council have said, looking into this as well. So the council chief, it says here, insists that no official talks over the new stadium or redeveloping of St James's Park have been held between them and the club. And whether the club opted for an extension of St James's Park or the building of a new stadium, the proposals would require planning permission from the council, and a public consultation would be legally required as part of that process. Any future plans could also end up being referred to the Secretary for State for Housing, Communities and Local Government to deliver a final verdict. And this is what a council spokesperson said. There has been a lot of speculation and interest among fans and others about the future of St James's Park. As stated previously, the City Council has had no formal talks with the club about this important matter. Our door remains open, as it would be any other developer. And when the club wants to discuss the plans in detail with us, we will be happy to sit down, listen, and advice. That's where we are with it all, guys. But let us know in the comments below what you think about this latest petition for stopping the potential Leazes Park Stadium. Are you for it? Are you against it? What do you think? Again, no need to be abusive to these environmentalists. They've got their cause. They want to fight for it. That's great. But Newcastle do need a new stadium. There is no doubt about that. So let us know what you think. Like and subscribe. Keep it evermore. We'll be back with some more Newcastle United banter soon. Have a belter. See you later. Cheers.
Heroes celebrate. They have done it.